What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? So tonight we have Eric Dubay that's going to try to prove that dinosaurs didn't exist. Now it's not going to be his complete proof, as his video is about 30 minutes long, and it's actually a repost because I think that his YouTube channel got taken down or something like that. Probably like all of the Nazi propaganda stuff that was on the channel. But we're going to be taking a look at why he thinks that dinosaurs never existed. This plays into his whole conspiracy theory leaning. He's a flat earther. He thinks all these crazy things, and just another thing on top of his crazy things is the idea that dinosaurs just never existed whatsoever. So we're going to be going through that today. If you're interested in that kind of bullshit and the reasons why he's totally wrong, then please stay tuned. As we all know, Eric Dubay loves flat earth stuff. He likes proving flat earth things. He likes debunking science, all the kind of shit. It's not just now, like this has always been part of his repertoire to say that dinosaurs never existed. So this ought to be interesting, and it definitely is. We're only going over the first 10 minutes of the video today though. It might be a little bit more than 10 minutes, but it's a 30-minute long video, so I didn't want to do all of it right now. We are going to look at the first 10 minutes. I have some notes written down so that I don't get fucked up, because at the very beginning he messes with timelines and everything like that, and it can get jumbled kind of quick. So if you would like more information on dinosaurs and the bullshit that's contained in this particular video that we're going to watch, you can go down below and hit those information links. I have links to fossil skeletons as well as information on specific dinosaurs. If you want to go down there, hit that up, check it out, and get educated. That would be awesome. So now let's get on into the Eric Dubay dipshittery.
The class Dinosauria was originally defined by Sir Richard Owen of the Royal Society and Superintendent of the British Museum Natural History Department in 1842. Or, in other words, the existence of dinosaurs was first speculatively hypothesized by a knighted museum head coincidentally in the mid-19th century during the heyday of evolutionism, before a single dinosaur fossil had ever been found.
I know that it's really quick into it, but already he's kind of really fucked up with the timeline here. Okay, so just to go over this really quick. In 1676, Robert Plot actually was tasked with looking at these rocks from Oxford. He worked at Oxford, I do believe, and they tasked him with looking and examining at these weird rocks that they had. He decided that one of these rocks just so happened to be a giant, like a femur, I think it was, maybe. Anyways, it was a giant human fossil, which was indicative of giants that roamed the earth. I'm guessing Nephilim or something like that. I mean, he was probably religious back then, like everybody fucking was. That actually turns out to be quite possibly, most likely, a bone from a megalosaurus. But he didn't know that then. All right, so now fast forward a couple hundred, or a little bit less than a couple hundred years, to 1820, when Gideon and Mary Ann Mantell actually found some large set of teeth while they were excavating a particular area. And they named it, they eventually came to try to name it Iguanosaurus, but of course that resembled way too much, the name for iguanas. So they settled on Iguanodon. Basically, at that point, they had identified a no longer extant or no longer living organism that was similar to reptiles, but much larger in size. So 1841 is where this particular video picks up. That's with Sir Richard Owen. He coins the phrase Dinosauria, or not the phrase Dinosauria, but the entire class of animals. He notices that all of these bones that are being found, these fossils of bones that are being found, seem to be able to be grouped into one particular grouping that no longer exists. And so he named it Terrible Lizard, or Dinosauria. And then in 1859, The Origin Species is published. So all of the dinosaur discoveries and like the naming of the entire class of animals being Dinosauria. All of that happened before evolution. It wasn't because of evolution that people started making shit up, or that it was some kind of conspiracy amongst all of these scientists in order to support evolutionary theory or anything like that, like he's trying to suggest here. The timeline of it thoroughly debunks his first few seconds of his video here, and he's pretty much going to build off of this throughout the entire video. This whole idea that scientists are conspiring together to create an entire class of animals in order to make some kind of profit off of it, or to become popular or something like that. He's going to mention that several times throughout this entire first part.
The Masonic media and mainstream press worldwide got to work hyping stories of these supposed long-lost animals, and then, lo and behold, 12 years later, in 1854, Ferdinand van der Veer Hayden, during his exploration of the upper Missouri River, found proof of Owen's theory.
Well, no, actually, Owen's theory, or his classification of Dinosauria, was just proved correct based on his original, hypothesis. That his hypothesis was that there's this class of animal that no longer lives now, that only exists in the fossils, and they're all related. So, I mean, that was his hypothesis, and he developed that hypothesis using evidence. If further evidence is found to support that hypothesis, it's not like that confirms a hypothesis. It's just that is predicted by the hypothesis.
A few unidentified teeth he mailed to leading paleontologist Joseph Leidy, who several years later declared them to be from an ancient, extinct Trachodon dinosaur, which, beyond ironically, means rough tooth. Firstly, it should be needless to say that it is impossible to reconstruct an entire hypothetical ancient animal based on a few teeth.
There's a lot that you can figure out from bones and fossil evidence. If anybody has watched the show Bones, I know that it's a TV show, but a lot of that is based off of real forensic information. Plus, a forensics expert is her books is the basis for the show. A lot of the forensic stuff in that show is based on factual information. So you can determine a lot of things, like just from the teeth. You can determine possibly how big the skull was. You could possibly determine what kind of food it ate, whether it was carnivorous or whether it was herbivorous or omnivorous, I guess. You can tell a lot just from teeth. But also, if you find teeth that don't match the teeth of any other living organism that you know of, then chances are you've discovered a new organism.
But even more importantly, it is dubious that a myriad of ancient reptile, bird, and reptile mammal transitional forms necessary for the blossoming theory of evolution would be hypothesized and then conveniently discovered by teams of evolutionist archaeologists purposely out looking to find such fossils. And it is even more dubious that such fossils have supposedly existed for millions of years, but were never found by or known to any civilization in the history of humanity.
All right, hold on. Before we get into all this Illuminati shit, as you can tell. So, what he's talking about here is that the hypothesis predicted the findings of fossils. We found those fossils, therefore it's a coincidence, or it's manufactured, that the fossils were found after the hypothesis was made. So he's insinuating here that the fossils were falsified in order to support the hypothesis. I'm not saying that can't happen, but at the same time, that's not what happened, and that's not how the scientific method is actually used. But with the scientific method, you can use a hypothesis to make predictions. If those predictions turn out to be correct, then that just further proves your hypothesis, or further supports your hypothesis, and it just makes your hypothesis even stronger. What he's complaining about here essentially is just the scientific method. Like, oh shit, this is how the scientific method works. It must be a conspiracy. And now we're getting into the conspiracy, a little bit more into the conspiracy part.
Until evolutionism's Masonic Renaissance in the mid-19th century. David Wozni wrote, "Why are there no discoveries by Native Americans in all the years previous when they roamed the American continents? There is no belief of dinosaurs in the Native American religion or tradition. For that matter, why were there no discoveries prior to the 19th century in any part of the world? According to the World Book Encyclopedia,
that's not exactly true. For one thing, there was no one Native American religion. There were multiple theologies that were at work in Native American cultures. So, I mean, I that's something kind of petty to pick on, I guess, but he makes it sound like there was just one overarching Native American theology, and there just simply wasn't. Number two, the Native Americans weren't looking or documenting like scientific finds or even using science in any kind of way. They weren't concerned with that. So why would you expect them to find dinosaur bones or to talk about dinosaur bones? Also, there were dinosaur bones found prior to the 19th century or 18th century, whatever. They were actually started being found in the 17th century, and then more and more bones were found. That's what prompted Sir Richard Owen to analyze the information and come up with this entire new class of animal called Dinosauria. So it's just not the way that you're like the way that you say that things happen just simply is not how things happened.
Before the 1800s, no one ever knew that dinosaurs existed.
Well, yeah, because Sir Richard Owen, he made up the name for them. Like the taxonomic system didn't even start to become a worry or anything like that until this point in time that he's talking about. We weren't concerned with like producing some kind of overarching system for classifying the living organisms here on Earth. The word dinosaur just didn't exist before Sir Richard Owen. Why would you expect it to?
During the late 1800s and early 1900s, large deposits of dinosaur remains were discovered. Why has man suddenly made all these discoveries? No tribes, cultures, or countries in the world ever discovered a dinosaur bone before the mid-1800s, and then they were suddenly found all over the world in North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Africa, Argentina, Belgium, Mongolia, Tanzania, West Germany, and many other places apparently had large deposits of dinosaur fossils never before seen.
I mean, nobody was looking for them, but also another point is that, like, let's just say we, at whatever point in human history, I didn't really look it up because I'm thinking about this right now on the spot, that we discovered cancer was a thing. Why did nobody talk about having cancer beforehand? Didn't people have like weird lumps on their dicks before that point? Why are we just now figuring out that all of this cancer exists? Why does something that we have given a name to suddenly start to exist? Why didn't we figure this shit out before? Why didn't anybody ever say anything before that point about these things? It makes no sense to be like, well, why are we just now starting to find these things? It's like, well, because we noticed this thing and then we started looking for it. We started noticing these things in the excavations that we were doing, or in, whenever there was like a construction site or something like that, you stumble across a dinosaur bone. It's like, oh, fuck, dinosaur bone. We need to preserve this shit because it's history, yo. It's so ridiculous to expect an entire, like, for human civilization to always know about dinosaurs.
All these places were inhabited and well explored for thousands of years before this time. Why had no one ever found a dinosaur fossil before?
Well, I mean, like I said, the first written like description of a dinosaur bone or whatnot was given by Robert Plot in 1676. So nobody knew what a giant fucking bone was that was fossilized. I mean, fossils themselves weren't really understood until, right about that time either. I guess maybe right, I don't know when we came up with the whole fossil thing. I really should have looked that up. I'm so sorry, guys.
According to the book The Dinosaur Project, paleontological journalist Wayne Grady claims the period following this, from around 1870 to 1880, became a period in North America where some of the most underhanded shenanigans in the history of science were conducted. In what was known as the Great Dinosaur Rush, or the Bone Wars, Edward Drinker Cope of the Academy of Natural Sciences and Othniel Marsh of the Peabody Museum of Natural History began a lifelong rivalry and passion for dinosaur hunting. They started out as friends, but became bitter enemies during a legendary feud involving double-crossing, slander, bribery, theft, spying, and destruction of bones by both parties. Marsh is said to have discovered over 500 different ancient species, including 80 dinosaurs, while Cope discovered 56. Out of the 136 dinosaur species supposedly discovered by the two men, however, only 32 are presently considered valid, as the rest have all proven to be falsifications and fabrications. None of them once claimed to find a complete skeleton either, so all their work involved reconstructions. In fact, to this day, no complete skeleton has ever been found, and so all dinosaurs are reconstructions.
What he's meaning here when he says complete skeleton is 100% complete fossil. That's not what we consider to be a complete skeleton, and in fact we have found multiple complete skeletons. Complete skeletons would be any skeleton that is more than 50% there. With more than 50% of a skeleton, you can really, get a grasp of the features of the dinosaur and everything like that. Of course, knowing Eric Dubay, he would think 50% of the skeleton, that's just like right up the ass end of it. I mean, what can you determine from that? We've come a long way in the research of dinosaurs. Like nowadays, we know like what color the feathers were on dinosaurs. I mean, the fact that we know that some dinosaurs actually had feathers is a relatively new thing that we've discovered. And I believe that it was just recently, I saw it right earlier tonight, where they found a new fossil that is like a sort of missing link between dinosaurs and avians, birds, modern day birds. We've been able to tell things like color of their feathers and everything like that. Of course, there is some artist rendition in some of the more popularized depictions of dinosaurs, but still, those are like best guesses as to what it looked like, and those have changed over time. And just because they're presenting the best guess for what it possibly looked like, given the bone structure and everything like that, it's fairly good, like considering what they're having to work with, which is just like pure bones, or not bones, sorry, fossilized bones. This is like really ridiculous of it, because what it feels like Eric Dubay is wanting here is like a complete carcass of a dinosaur. Just like a dinosaur went into a cave, died, the cave was sealed up, and it remained perfectly mummified and everything until today. And, that it was a complete carcass of a dinosaur. That's what Eric wants, but that's not what he's going to get. Also, just to lay this out there, we do have some very, very complete skeletons that are considered complete skeletons. Like there's the Tyrannosaurus Rex dubbed Sue, who's over 90% complete. And then the most complete dinosaur skeleton that we've been able to find is about 98% complete. I mean, what Eric is saying here is just flat out lying.
David Wozni wrote, "Discoveries and excavations seem not to be made by disinterested people such as farmers, ranchers, hikers, outdoor recreationists, building construction industry basement excavators, pipeline trench diggers, and mining industry personnel, but rather by people with a vested interest such as paleontologists, scientists, university professors, and museum organization personnel who were intentionally looking for dinosaur bones or who have studied dinosaurs previously."
Okay, so I want to stop him right there, and I forgot to look this up. National Geographic. The amazing dinosaur find accidentally by miners in Canada. How many seconds was that, honey? Like, I don't know, 3? 5? I count slow. It literally took me like very little, like it took me 5 seconds to find an article where miners have accidentally found dinosaur bones. But that shouldn't detract from the point that you have this whole entire scientific field that is meant to study these paleontological finds, these dinosaur fossils. You think that they're not going to go looking for more? You think they're not going to use the hypothesis of uniformitarianism as well as the other things that geology and everything like that's built off of? You think they're not going to use that in order to narrow down where these fossils would be? It just amazes me how you think it's some kind of conspiracy that people that want to find dinosaur bones actually found dinosaur bones so that they can study them. This is such a far, reaching thing right now that it's fucking ridiculous.
finds are often made during special dinosaur bone hunting trips and expeditions by these people to faraway regions already inhabited and explored. This seems highly implausible. More believable is the case of the discovery of the first original Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947, which were unintentionally discovered by a child and which were all published by 1955.
Okay, so I've been reading a book on the Nag Hammadi Library. It is really fucking interesting, but see, the point is that it's not like some child accidentally found the scrolls or whatnot and then like alerted the authorities and like the authorities got involved and everything like that. Somebody went looking for that type of artifact and found them. Just because somebody accidentally stumbled on them doesn't give it more credence or anything like that. It's just how it happened. But also, it also happens to dinosaur bones. They're accidentally found all the time.
In some cases of a discovery of dinosaur bones by a disinterested person, it was suggested to them by some professional in the field to look or dig in a certain area. Also very interesting to note are special areas set aside and designated as dinosaur parks, for which amateur dinosaur hunters are required to first obtain a dinosaur hunting license.
Well, I mean, it would be people going out looking for fossils. I mean, the whole licensing thing is really just to generate money for either the state or whatever organization is like running that particular area or owns that area. Licensing fees are really just to generate money. That's all that is. No, well, in this particular context, he's not considering the various different fossil types because like footprints, those would also be fossil types, which in between Robert Plot and like Gideon Marianne Mantell or Richard Owen, there was actually a set of tracks that were found in a rock that were assumed to be from giant fucking ravens, and I'm not lying about this. This is legit. You can look this up. They thought it was from giant ravens that got off of the ark. Because prior to like the idea of an old Earth and everything like that, like people thought that the world actually flooded, and so they thought that these tracks that looked avian in nature were actually ravens that were just giant, and they got off the ark.
Whatever destination these establishment-funded archaeologists and paleontologists set, it seemed they found incredible numbers of fossils in tiny areas. In one of the largest dinosaur excavation sites, called the Ruth Mason Quarry, over 2,000 fossils were allegedly discovered. Casts and original skeletons assembled from these bones are currently on display in over 60 museums worldwide. Florentino Amagino, head of paleontology at La Plata Museum, is amazingly responsible for 6,000 fossil species supposedly discovered throughout his career, all in Argentina. Dinosaur hunter Earl Douglas sent 350 tons of excavated dinosaur bones to the Carnegie Museum of Natural History throughout his career, all coming from the Dinosaur National Monument in Utah.
I haven't fact-checked these particular things, but even assuming that these things are correct, I mean, yeah, people, scientists, paleontologists, they went looking for dinosaur bones and they found them and then they sent them back. Like, I don't understand what the issue is with that.
During an expedition to Patagonia, Dr. Louis Chiappe and Dr. Lowell Dingus supposedly discovered thousands of dinosaur eggs at a site of only a few hundred square yards. Many experts have mentioned how such finds of huge quantities of fossils in one area by just a few highly invested individuals goes against the laws of natural probability. And
I don't know what the laws of natural probability are, but the fact is that these bone beds that we find are places where large amounts of these animals would have died, and they would have died by like being in a flood or something like that. See, we can know like what the terrain was like back in the Cretaceous period. Like I can't remember exactly which period it was, but there used to be an ocean that cut clean across the United States, and for that reason we know where to look for these dinosaurs. We know to look near these near the water's edge of where these ancient seas were. The fact is that we can hypothesize where these bones would be given what we already know about the terrain of the Earth in the Cretaceous period or the Jurassic period or any particular particular period. And then we can go and we can dig to that particular strata, and then we can find dinosaur bones, possibly. It depends. We don't exactly know where they are, but yeah, if you have like a good idea of where they would be based on facts that you already have, why is it a conspiracy when you actually find shit that you think would be there? The simple fact is it's not a conspiracy. I mean, that's what Eric Dubay, that's what his entire argument like hinges on, is the idea that all these scientists were conspiring with each other in order to falsify this whole idea of dinosaurs existing for whatever the fuck reason. I mean, it's not like paleontology makes a lot of money. I mean, they're so underpaid that, I mean, you really have to want to be a paleontologist in order to do that job.
Lends credence to the likelihood of forgeries or concentrated planting efforts. David Wozni wrote, "Dinosaur bones sell for a lot of money at auctions. It is a profitable business. There is pressure for academics to publish papers. Museums are in the business of producing displays that are popular and appealing. Movie producers and the media need to produce material to sell to stay in business. The mainstream media loves to hype alleged dinosaur finds. Much is to be gained by converting a bland, non-dinosaur discovery of a bone of modern origin into an impressive dinosaur find, and letting artists' interpretations and imaginations take the spotlight rather than the basic, boring, real find."
This is still debate just trying to build on the idea that there's some kind of conspiracy, that there's all of this money motivation to want to make people produce the dinosaur bones and to produce scientific studies and everything like that. I've never written like a scientific paper and had it published, but I don't know if you really make money from publishing a paper. Like you have that to add to your resume, I guess, unless you get paid by university to write the paper. It's not like, oh, if you just randomly write a fucking paper, you get paid $30 for it or something like that. The papers, the studies that are done cost money in order to get them done. Like, that's, you don't make money back from the paper being written or anything. Yeah, Robert Adset says publishing often costs money. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm fairly certain that you, like that's a loss. Like, you lose money when you do scientific studies, unless it's like in the pharmaceutical field or something like that. You're most likely not going to make your money back. I mean, you would be operating at a loss. So as far as like an investment or a money-making venture, just like scientific studies and finding dinosaur bones or producing these displays in museums, you're not making a lot of money there.
There are people who desire and crave prestige, fame, and attention. There is the bandwagon effect and crowd behavior. Other
than, now that I think of it, Alan from Jurassic Park and, what's his face? Jeff Goldblum's character. I can't remember his name right now in Jurassic Park. Ian Malcolm. Yes, thank you everybody in the chat. Ian, and he was a chaos theory guy, so he's not even these are all fictional people. Like, I can't think of a paleontologist that's like reached, like Neil deGrasse Tyson fame or anything like that. It's really funny coming from Eric Dubay saying all of this shit, because I mean, he produces his videos so that he will be well known. This entire video is just a mind fuck.
And then there are people and entities pursuing political and religious agendas. Highly rewarding financial and economic benefits to museums, educational and research organizations, university departments of paleontology, discoverers and owners of dinosaur bones, and the book, television, movie, and media industries may cause sufficient motivations for ridiculing of open questioning and for suppression of honest investigation.
The Jurassic Park series started out with the old guy coming to these paleontologists, Alan, and the girl he was with at the time, being like, I will fully fund your dig for the next 4 years if you come and do this shit. And it's like, this is not a high paying job. Whatever money they get, they sink into, you know, excavations and like study and everything like that. You don't get paid a lot of money for doing paleontological work, unless maybe if you're like a curator at a museum or something like that. But even then, you don't get paid like what an engineer would get paid. No, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that you don't paid a lot of money. But that's why if you want to do that kind of job, you have to really want to do that kind of job, because you're just not making the kind of money to be like, well, I would quit, but the money's too good.
The fact that T-Rex bones have sold at auctions for upward of $12 million shows how lucrative the field of dinosaur hunting can be, and it just happens to be museum officials who serendipitously seem to make the most prolific finds. The first dinosaur to ever be publicly displayed was the Hadrosaurus fulci at Edward Drinker Cope's Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia. The bones were co-discovered by Joseph Leidy, Cope's esteemed professor, and the man responsible for the Trachodon Toothosaurus. The original Hadrosaurus reconstruction, which is still on display today, shows a huge plaster-cast bipedal reptile standing upright, using its tail as a third leg. What few people know, however, is that no skull was ever discovered and no original bones were put in the public exhibit. David Wasney wrote, "A visual and a sculptural artist were promptly hired to invent a skull, and from the illustrations of another artist, who had depicted the iguanodon, the two artists drew the same face for the Hadrosaurus fulci. The people involved could now technically defend the existence of this dinosaur if someone were to ask. The stunt worked out so well and fooled the public so thoroughly that they could later change the head of the creature without anyone noticing. To this day, Hadrosaurus fulci is on display at the Academy of Natural Sciences in Philadelphia."
There's actually been 3 full, like, Hadrosaurus skeletons found, and I've actually got it linked in the description. The most recent one found, I believe it was 2017 is when it was found. But the point is that Eric is lying here in that there's never been a full skeleton found. There have been. Also, there's been multiple individuals found that we could piece together and get a full picture of it. We've been able to identify multiple, multiple species inside that particular group or clade of dinosaurs. Given that we found at least 3 complete skeletons, which is very rare to find a complete skeleton, which complete in this case means 50% or more of the skeleton. The fact that we found these 3 and Eric still repeats this nonsense as if it were true just means that he's lying, or he's just too lazy to do actual research, which is kind of funny because he would have to do research in order to get the wrong information. So he selectively picked the wrong information to present to his audience, which is very disingenuous and makes me think that he's just straight up lying, or maybe he doesn't believe the contradictory evidence that he probably found in his research. So my guess is, overall, is that Eric Dubay is a lying son of a bitch. We found multiples of these particular dinosaurs. So also another thing that he pointed out here was the like concepts or filling out of a dinosaur skeleton or whatnot just to give a complete skeleton. Supposing what the dinosaur looked like, or being able to figure out like, oh well, it probably had, if its legs were this thick, then it probably stood this tall and everything like that. Like, you can figure out a lot of things just from a few pieces of bones. What he's saying here is he's making it sound like they just made up different attributes of a dinosaur, put it out there, and then regularly changed it. They probably did like rework some of these skeletons. Like, the fact that some dinosaurs had feathers on them is a complete reworking from how we understood them to exist before. It's based off of actual fossilized evidence, though.
The bones are said to be kept behind heavy closed doors, but a plaster copy is exhibited in their place.
Well, yeah, so generally the stuff that you see out on the floor is going to be like plaster copies of the bones. I mean, they're not going to put actual dinosaur bones out on the floor for every like sick kid to like lick and touch and possibly knock over and shit. Like, that's just, I mean, it would be kind of stupid to put that out there on display. You would want to have that stuff locked up. Plus, like you said before, dinosaur bones are very expensive. I mean, if you stole a whole dinosaur skeleton, sure, you could sell that for probably a few million on a black market somewhere or something like that. But then it's kind of like, hey, Bill, why you got a Tyrannosaurus Rex in your living room?
So we learn of an iguana skull being substituted for the skull of a dinosaur on display. What was the public told at the time? What are we not being told today?
I don't know. I don't think that it's a matter of you're not being told something. You know, like for instance, the full dinosaur skeleton that I just talked about, the one that was recently uncovered, it was actually uncovered like in 2013 or something like that. And it took several years to fully excavate it, clean off the bones, and, actually get the study out and everything like that, and announce it and everything. So, I mean, what you're not being told, like, I don't think that there's anything that you're not being told. I think that there are things that you're just not researching. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. If you will, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about Eric Dubay's shit here. Let me know if I missed anything or I got anything wrong. Let me know in the comments. While you're down there, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if this is your first time here. If you're going to be leaving out right now, then I hope that you guys will stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.